The cold rain poured down as Olivia Carter stood outside yet another office building, clutching a termination letter in her trembling hands. The words blurred in front of her eyes, but she already knew what they said. It was the same every time. "We appreciate your contributions, but unfortunately, you are not a good fit for our company." She had heard those words more times than she could count. Fired. Again. At 28, she had worked at over a dozen companies, only to be let go from every single one. Some bosses said she was too opinionated. Others claimed she was too creative for structured roles. A few simply found her too much to handle. But the reality was simple. Olivia Carter did not fit into the mold society had created for an ideal employee. And now, she was jobless once again, standing in the pouring rain with no idea what to do next. Shoving the letter into her bag, she walked aimlessly down the wet streets of New York City, the bright lights and bustling crowds doing little to comfort her. The world around her seemed to move forward while she remained stuck. She entered a small coffee shop, ordered a cheap black coffee, and took a seat by the window. As she stared at her reflection in the glass, a voice echoed in her mind, the words of her last boss, Mr. Grayson. "You have potential, Olivia, but you refuse to follow rules. People like you don't last long in corporate jobs." She clenched her fists. Maybe he was right. Maybe she wasn't meant for normal jobs. But if not this, then what? Just as she was about to shut her laptop and leave, her email notification pinged. She sighed, expecting another rejection from the dozens of job applications she had sent out. But the subject line caught her attention. "This might change your life." She frowned, hesitating before clicking it open. The email was short and mysterious. "You don't belong in a cage. Some people are meant to build, not obey. Are you ready to prove them all wrong? If so, meet me at the Redwood Lounge tomorrow, 8 p.m. Ask for Elliot Pierce." Her heart raced. Who was Elliot Pierce, and how did he know about her? It had to be a scam. But something inside her, a tiny spark of curiosity, refused to let her ignore it. The next evening, Olivia found herself standing in front of the Redwood Lounge, an upscale bar she had never dared enter before. She took a deep breath and stepped inside. The atmosphere was dimly lit, filled with quiet conversations and the occasional clink of expensive whiskey glasses. She approached the bartender and, with hesitation, asked, "I'm here for Elliot Pierce." The bartender nodded and gestured toward a private booth in the back. Olivia's pulse quickened as she walked toward it. Sitting there was a man in his early 40s, dressed in a tailored black suit. He looked up as she approached, his piercing blue eyes studying her carefully. "Olivia Carter," he said, more as a statement than a question. "Please sit." She took a seat, her nerves on edge. "Who are you, and how do you know about me?" Elliot smirked. "I make it my business to know things, and I know that you've been fired from every job you've had. Not because you're incompetent, but because you refuse to play by the rules of the system. That makes you different, and different is valuable, if you know how to use it." She raised an eyebrow. "And why does that matter to you?" He leaned forward, his voice lowering slightly. "Because I was once like you, Olivia, fired from job after job, labeled as a troublemaker. But instead of trying to fit in, I created something of my own. Now I invest in people like you, people who don't belong in a box, people meant to change the game." She narrowed her eyes. "What exactly are you offering?" Elliot took out a sleek black card and slid it across the table. "A challenge. A test to see if you have what it takes. If you accept, you have 72 hours to come up with a business idea, build a prototype, and pitch it to me. If I like it, I'll invest $1 million into making it a reality. If you fail, well, let's just say, you'll have proven your boss is right." Olivia stared at the card, her mind racing. This was insane, impossible, and yet, she felt something she hadn't felt in years, excitement. "And if I say no?" Elliot shrugged. "Then you can go back to applying for jobs that will fire you in 6 months. Your choice." She clenched her jaw. This was it. A moment that could change everything. "I'm in." The next 3 days were a blur. Olivia locked herself in her tiny apartment, fueled by coffee, adrenaline, and sheer determination. She scribbled down ideas, scrapped them, and started over. Every rejection, every insult from past employers replayed in her mind, pushing her forward. You'll never make it. You don't have what it takes. You're not the right fit. By the second night, exhaustion set in. Her hands trembled as she typed. Her vision blurred. But then, an idea struck her. Something born out of her own struggle. A platform designed for people like her. Non-traditional thinkers, rebels, innovators, who didn't fit into corporate jobs but had the skills to create something of their own. A system that connected them to freelance work, startup opportunities, and mentorship from successful entrepreneurs. She worked tirelessly, designing a rough prototype, writing a pitch, and preparing for the meeting. On the final day, Olivia walked into Elliot's office, clutching her laptop with sweaty hands. The room was filled with sharp-eyed investors, including Mr. Grayson, her former boss. He smirked when he saw her. This should be interesting. Taking a deep breath, Olivia stepped forward and began her pitch. She spoke with passion, with fire in her voice. She wasn't just selling a business. She was proving to everyone, including herself, that she was more than the failures behind her. When she finished, silence filled the room. Then, Elliot smiled. "Brilliant." Mr. Grayson's smirk faded. "Wait, you're actually considering this?" Elliot turned to him. "You fired her because she didn't follow your rules. That's exactly why she'll succeed." He turned back to Olivia and extended his hand. "You have a deal." Tears pricked her eyes as she shook his hand. For the first time in her life, she wasn't being fired. She was being hired. But on her own terms. A year later, Olivia stood on the stage of a prestigious tech conference, looking out at a crowd of aspiring entrepreneurs. Behind her, a massive screen displayed the name of her now thriving company, RebelWorks. For those who don't fit in. She took a deep breath, smiling as she began her speech. "They told me I wasn't the right fit, that I would never succeed, that I was too much, and for a long time, I believed them. But the truth is, sometimes, being too much is exactly what the world needs. You don't have to fit into their mold. You can build your own." The audience